Hi, welcome to History Doodles. I want to be upfront that this episode is a little more polarizing, and this painting that we're going to go over is a little more graphic than a lot of the other things I do. So if you're not into that, that's totally fine. Please check out something else. But with that disclaimer being said, this is the story of how a fringe worship group became one of the most powerful sects on the planet, and that's the Christians. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is the Christian Martyrs Last Prayer, painted by Jean-Léon Gérôme in 1883. And it's an absolute doozy. Here we see the Christian martyrs, and they're huddled around their preacher, clinging to their faith in a moment of pure desperation. Behind them hang crucified men, just dying in the background. And then we've got an absolutely massive crowd, and these poor souls are about to get just ripped apart by a lion for their entertainment. Jerome was famous for painting how we imagine antiquity, and this painting has such an incredible blend of faith and horror and beauty and violence that it really gives a taste of the range of emotions that his art was able to produce. And he did a lot to be accurate in his portrayals, because the reality is, in the early Roman Empire, Christians were treated very hostilely, though that is not always consistent throughout the different reigns of the different emperors. But sometimes, like under the reign of Nero, Christians were set on fire alive like a human torch in order to light up his garden. Now, at other times, though, the Christians were kind of in the background, just another group of worshipers that, had one god of many that they prayed to. The Christians were only unusual in this time because they only worshipped one god. But how this group went from being a religion practiced by mainly those at the fringes, including the poor, slaves, and women, to becoming the imperial religion of Rome is a really crazy story that really shapes how the rest of history turns out. And it's a lot more violent of a story than you might expect from the peaceful doctrine of the Christians. That transformation is a process that takes hundreds of years. And probably the most important event on that long journey happened in 312 AD. Now, at this time, the Roman Empire was very fractured and militarized. And a man named Constantine, who would be later known as Constantine the Great, was fighting for control of a bigger piece of this empire. He controlled Gaul and Britain and Spain, but not Italy, which was run by another guy that had a different claim to the throne named Maxentius. Now, the two were obviously at odds with each other, and Constantine took somewhere around 40,000 men on campaign into Italy to claim the sole throne. He easily overran northern Italy and made it to the outskirts of Rome by October. And he was preparing for a clash when Constantine had some sort of spiritual awakening that happened the night of October 27th, 312 AD. Now, there are many versions of these events, as can be expected with something supernatural like this. By the most simple terms, Constantine claimed that he was given a divine sign from the Christian God that had something like a cross or a Chi-Rho and the words, "In this sign you shall conquer." And he interpreted this sign as divine intervention on his behalf, and that he was going to be sanctioned by God, the Christian God, to conquer Rome and become the sole emperor of the Western Roman Empire. Now, on the other side of this, Maxentius was a traditional Roman pagan, and his strategy should have been to wait in Rome behind his big walls and wait out Constantine. He had surplus food provisioned for this occasion, and this strategy had worked well for Maxentius on other occasions where other people had tried to usurp his throne. Instead, though, and it is not clear why, Maxentius decided to meet Constantine in the battlefield. And this itself is given as proof of divine intervention on Constantine's behalf by some. Anyway, he marched out to meet Constantine at the Milvian Bridge, which crosses the Tiber River. The bridge itself was at least partially destroyed in preparation for the siege, and Maxentius had wooden pontoon bridges built for his army to cross. And the next day, the armies came to a head, and Constantine won a decisive victory. Maxentius tried to arrange a retreat, but the wooden bridges collapsed underneath him and stranded his men on the north side of the river. The entire army was either butchered or drowned, and even Maxentius got caught up in this bloodbath. Now, after this, Constantine enters Rome victoriously on the 29th of October, and he was even accompanied by Maxentius's head, which was driven through a pike and paraded through the streets, which I have to say is not very Christian of him. Constantine, however, sticks to his guns about his conversion to Christianity, and he would go on to be a great emperor of Rome and found the famous city of Constantinople. The next year, 313 AD, saw the Edict of Milan, which was an official decree to treat the Christians benevolently, treat them well within the empire. And after this point, almost all the emperors succeeding Constantine would be Christians, and the Christian church slowly replaced traditional pagan temples. Christianity would become increasingly mainstream until the Edict of Thessalonica in 380 AD, where under Theodosius I, Christianity became the official state religion. And eventually, even after the Roman Empire collapsed, the Christian church remained. And although it started to fragment into different sects, Christianity in some ways remained the default religion and worldview for the West for thousands of years, and arguably even to today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, it'd be awesome if you could like and subscribe. I hope to see you next time.